Hey, what's going on, everyone? How you guys doing today? My name is Matt Jarbo. This is $3 Theater. And is everything a fight? I have to just ask that question these days. Is everything out there a fight? Because it feels like it. It feels like the state of affairs in regards to movie and movie punditry and commentary is nothing more than just a thinly veiled attack, time after time after time. And I say that mostly because I feel like that's the world we're living in right now. I feel like that's where we are. So what I want to talk about today is this thing that kind of blew up yesterday, but I missed it. Sam Witwer, the voice of Darth Maul for Clone Wars and Rebels and Solo and probably more things, because everyone wants more Darth Maul, especially after the last couple episodes of Clone Wars, is not a big fan of The Last Jedi specifically. And honestly, who can blame him? A lot of people out there, myself included, are not fans of The Last Jedi. We don't like it at all. Like, oh God, this is The Last Jedi. Yeah. It just didn't feel like a Star Wars movie. And this is a guy who I think would know if something feels like a Star Wars movie, because he helped bring back this character, this beloved two-decade-old character, as well as being good friends with Dave Filoni, who is kind of like the chosen one when it comes to this kind of stuff. So let's take a look here at this article from JoBlo.com saying Darth Maul voice actor accuses Rian Johnson of not knowing Star Wars. And I think at this point we all can kind of agree, yeah, Johnson doesn't know Star Wars. He didn't make this movie, The Last Jedi, to be a Star Wars film. It should have been a standalone film. It wasn't a standalone film. It was this middle. I don't want to get into it. It's so much to get into. But this is what Witwer says. He says, The Last Jedi to me felt like a movie made by a guy who hadn't quite done his homework. I think Rian Johnson's a talented guy, but Bruce Lee didn't develop Jeet Kune Do without learning Kung Fu first. You can't reinvent Star Wars without knowing what Star Wars is first, and he didn't. For me, make a compelling argument for why Luke didn't go help his sister. There were a lot of things in The Last Jedi I found compelling in a Rian Johnson filmmaker point of view. They just didn't fit into Star Wars. I don't think he did his Star Wars homework, the themes, what it's about, what the characters are about. But as a standalone film, I don't know what the Jedi are or who Luke is or what he represents. I think there's some compelling things in there. If that's meaningful to you, that's awesome. And I mean, a lot of people agreed with him. And some people tried calling it, they tried twisting it, right? Saying that like Sam Witwer hates The Last Jedi. He had to come out and clarify, no, I don't hate it. It's not a clickbait article. It's not a clickbait story. And then, of course, he's arguing with Ichibaka, who is, I don't know what you'd want to refer to this guy as, but he runs a Disney Star Wars, or Down with Disney Star Wars web blog or whatever the hell. And as a little side note to that, when he was first getting started, he used to spam me emails with every article he wrote. He would spam me an email, hoping that I would pick it up and cover it. And I did cover it a couple times until I realized what he was up to, and then I stopped. What his politics are, how they vary from mine, and then I stopped. But yeah, he's one of those type of people that's kind of just gotten so hardcore in the last couple years that you're like, oh, okay, man, like rein it in a little bit. You know what I mean? Go get a little pokey going on. You might feel better. But really what Witwer is saying here is that he isn't a fan of The Last Jedi because he feels that Rian Johnson didn't fundamentally understand Star Wars. And he didn't. Now, there are always going to be those defenders that try to say, well, people didn't like the Empire Strikes Back when it came out. People didn't like Attack of the Clones when it came out. Look, Attack of the Clones still frequently gets listed as the worst Star Wars movie by many people, whereas Empire still gets listed as the best Star Wars movie. Judging The Last Jedi by the middle film of the two previous trilogies doesn't make any sense, because one is considered greatest of all time and one is considered trash. So, you can't really put it in there. Do I think The Last Jedi is worse than Attack of the Clones? Fundamentally, yes, because I will go back and rewatch Attack of the Clones to see Lucas's vision. Yes, there are issues with the dialogue and the acting, but the visuals are on point, the action is on point, and it is fundamentally Star Wars. And it is because of how much I love the Clone Wars and how much I love Rebels and what Filoni has done and everything else, that for me it gets better. And I think Sam Witwer is kind of in the same boat, right? When you look at The Last Jedi, when you look at what Johnson did with it, it didn't feel like it was part of a larger story. It felt like it was part of something that he just wanted to tell, this like side adventure, this Elseworld story. But now it's considered canon. Now it's considered something we have to deal with, and that sucks. It does. It's destroyed the fandom for better or for worse, and clearly for worse. Anyway, you know, I agree with Witwer on a lot of this stuff. As I was watching the Disney Gallery, and they were talking about the making of The Mandalorian, and they were talking to Dave Filoni and interviewing him, and he was telling the story of how he met George and where he came from, the fact that he worked on Avatar: The Last Airbender, and he worked on a bunch of other things over the years, and he ended up being taught by Lucas what Star Wars was and what it was. And we can see that kind of storytelling coming through, right, from the master to the apprentice after being a Padawan, and now that Padawan apprentice is now the master, and so we can see that kind of storytelling is what people want, and that's where Sam Witwer comes into play here, because that's what he's trying to say. Unfortunately, Johnson, I don't think, had the time to fundamentally do the homework that he needed to do. And I say that because Kathy Kennedy and JJ have talked a little bit about the building of everything. And they had said that, at least this came from Kathy, is that when they were plotting out the story for The Force Awakens, they had actually gone and like they had a room and there was a bunch of whiteboards and they had plotted out all 3 acts, right? Episode 7, 8, 9. In order to set the kernels, right? To set the narratives, to set the plans. And then somehow that went away with The Last Jedi. Somehow that went away and no one got it. Now, here's why I think that happened. And it's not because of some political agenda. It's really not because of some political agenda. If you look at Kathy Kennedy's history, her history with Spielberg, her history with Lucas, her history with her husband, Frank Marshall, the films she's worked on, the films she's been a part of. She clearly understands the filmmaking process. But she's also been completely saddled with people who know what they're doing, who are better storytellers than she is, who understand what they want to do. She clearly has been around that her entire career. She's always been with the A-list talent, right? The A-listers, the home names type, right? Those kind of people. So she comes into Star Wars and she's now working with more of like the indie type of people. Phil Lord, Chris Miller, Josh Trank originally when he was set on to go and do the Boba Fett movie. Rian Johnson, who had only done one major studio film, which would be Looper, if you really even want to call it that. And that was years earlier. And he was following up J.J. Abrams, who is as studio as they come. So that was the biggest problem, is her expertise and her experience being in like the top tier upper echelon her entire career. We're talking from 1978, you know, when she started off and she met Spielberg and like launched into that whole realm, working with these younger filmmakers who have different visions and different ideas. Clearly was not in her wheelhouse. And Favreau is a different type of filmmaker. As a filmmaker, as an actor, he understands those type of voices and utilizing them for the better. Which is why with The Mandalorian and bringing in Deborah Chow and Bryce Dallas Howard and Rick Famuyiwa and you know, Filoni and Taika Waititi, different filmmakers in different parts of their career having done different things, but a lot of them did come from indie. At least Deborah Chow and Rick Famuyiwa did, and Taika too, to an extent. Before Thor Ragnarok, he was indie, so he understood how to formulate these people and how to allow them to tell their stories and allow them to express their voices while still staying intact with what they were attempting to do. And that is ultimately what Witwer is talking about here, is that in regards to how Kathy ran things, Rian Johnson didn't do his homework because he probably never had homework to do. And that does fundamentally go back to a lack of solid leadership in regards to this whole situation. And I know that's a bit of a long kind of how we got to this whole process, but this is why this is kind of what I think Witwer was talking about, and why I fundamentally, wholeheartedly agree with him on these sentiments. Rian Johnson is a talented filmmaker. There's no mistake about that. There's not. Knives Out was a fantastic movie. His work on Breaking Bad was great. Looper was dog crap, but I enjoyed Brick immensely. And I do look forward to Knives Out 2 or whatever else he goes and works on. And if he were to come on in and direct an episode of The Mandalorian, I understand that it would be in better position than he would be, by doing The Last Jedi. And I have a feeling he probably already has directed an episode. We just don't know about it yet, and they want to keep it from us to keep the internet from burning itself down over it. But yeah, this is why what Sam Witwer is saying, to kind of finish it up here, what Witwer is saying is that they need to have a strong voice at the helm who understands how to be a mentor and a leader to all the people that work underneath them. Kathy has always had strong filmmakers who know what they're doing, and so her whole area of expertise is about lining them up to allow them to knock it out of the park. Now she's on the other side of that, and clearly she didn't get it. Anyway, I want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear your opinions. Let me know down in the comments below. I'll talk to you guys all later. Have yourself a great day. Thank you again for watching. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz, and peace out.